I recently had a client that ordered a 9-foot cedar slab dining table, and milling the 9-foot slabs became one of my greatest woodworking challenges, especially since I currently run my business from a one-car garage. In this video, I want to show you how I overcame this challenge and delivered the greatest table that I've ever built. Shopfix. It's for the love of woodworking. My plan to be able to mill such large slabs in a one-car garage was to utilize my table saw workstation that's housed in the middle of my workshop and expand it from 5 feet to 10 feet. To accomplish this, I milled up several 4x4 pine posts. It was essential that these were completely flat, as the router sled will be referencing the surface it's guided upon. The flatter the reference surface, the flatter the slabs will be in the end. Since I'm building this router sled table on top of my workstation, and I'm going to eventually need to use my table saw again, I'm going to need to build this to be temporary. I decided that being able to clamp the router sled table to my workstation to be a great temporary option, so I created notches at the end of the pine boards to create room for clamps. Once I had all the boards notched out, I decided to go ahead and give them all a coat of tung oil. I have big dreams for my future woodworking projects, and a simple like on this video can make a huge difference, so I appreciate all your support. These milled 4x4 posts will make up the base of the router sled table, and I needed to mend them together before attaching the top surface. I simply took a piece of 1/2-inch MDF and cut it to fit the slot. I then attached the piece of MDF by first drilling a small pilot hole, countersinking, and then driving a 1-inch screw into place. Now that I had the boards secured together, I placed them on top of my table saw workstation and then used F-style clamps on either side to make sure it doesn't shift out of position. For the top surface of the router sled table, I decided to use sheets of 3/4 thick particle board. I found it to be a cost-effective way to create the 10-foot top. Once I had everything aligned properly, I drilled pilot holes, then I countersunk the holes, and drove in 2-inch screws to attach the particle board to the 4x4 post. Since the router sled table hangs over the table saw workstation so much, it required me to cut custom boards to act as feet on all 4 corners to make sure the ends of the table remained level and flat as I milled the slabs. I also decided to trim off the overhang on the sides of the table, which not only made it stronger, but it also gave me a lot more working room, which was important in an already limited space. After trimming the sides, the router sled table was still plenty wide enough to mill the cedar slabs that I had bought, which were about 20 inches in width. The particular model router sled I bought on Amazon uses long metal rods to keep your router flat and uses wheels to guide it along its path. It can be easily adjusted to match the width of the table's surface and the height of the lumber to be milled. I highly recommend this style of router sled. However, when milling huge slabs, dust collection needs a huge upgrade. When I was researching router sleds, I was really focused on the ease of use, so the wheels were important to me, and the sturdiness of the sled was equally important. I did not, however, realize how essential dust collection was going to be until I got to milling the slabs and my entire garage was covered in cedar dust. Knowing what I know now, I would pay a lot more attention to how the router sled is set up for dust collection. Many router sleds on the market do not come equipped with dust collection, so I wanted to show you how I set up mine. After attaching the hose adapter to the top of the acrylic, I created a wooden frame that fits around the router sled. The frame will enable me to mount a proper dust cover. There is a lever on one end which locks and unlocks the router's position along the metal rods. I needed to cut a small groove to enable access to that small lever. I then gave the corners a large roundover using my spindle sander. The wooden frame and large roundover are all set up for the most crucial part of the dust collection, which is the dust cover. This dust cover is 2.75 inches wide, and I secured it all the way around simply using those staples. Now, before ever operating a router sled, it's important that a stop block is added to either side of the router sled table to prevent the machine from falling off the table, which nearly happened to me, so don't make that mistake. I first attempted to use the router sled with the dust collection running along the ground, but I noticed that it was getting tangled up quite often, so I mounted a hook onto the ceiling to attach a bungee cord to suspend the dust collection hoses in the air. To secure the slab without damaging it, I clamped on a block of wood onto either end of the table to wedge the slab into place so it doesn't move while it's being flattened. Lastly, to make sure the dust cover stays seated into position on top of the router sled while in use, I had to mount 2 pieces of hardware that can be swiveled in and out. Once these are swiveled out underneath the acrylic, the dust cover is secured into place. Now it was time to get milling. It's essential to start the router on the side of the slab so that the router bed is free and clear of the wood, and then you can cut your way into the slab. I tried milling horizontally and also vertically, and I quickly realized that milling vertically, or in other words, long ways, was much more efficient. I also learned that taking several light passes in depth is much quicker than trying to take a deep pass all at once. I was still not quite satisfied with the performance of the dust collection here, as I noticed the dust had a tendency to shoot out the side that the router was spinning towards. To solve this, I simply doubled up on the dust cover material on that side, and it seemed to do the trick. The bit that I'm using is a 3-inch surfacing router bit, and it was not only cutting like butter, but it was also leaving the surface really smooth. One upgrade you can make is to attach brushes to the front of the sled's wheels, which will help clear out the debris and keep it running smoothly. As the router sled got to the sides of the slab, I noticed that the performance of the dust collection was reduced, but overall it performed rather well. I hope my challenges and their solutions gave you some things to consider when flattening your own slabs. I can tell you that the whole process is quite enjoyable, and I don't believe I've ever been quite as happy in my shop as I am here milling these giant 9-foot slabs. I ended up combining 2 of these slabs to create the cedar slab top. It was an incredible project, I learned so much, and I hope you enjoyed watching the process. I really appreciate your support, and I encourage you to check out another one of my videos.